traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Of course, the Chicago mayor's race is in full swing now with the entrance of anticipated candidates like lobbyist John Kelly and LEG. Those are the candidates that the media is focusing upon. So, but that should tell you something about them. And you could take that a couple of different ways, including less than positive. But, the race, it'll sneak up on you. You back out the holidays, February primary for a runoff to April, most likely, given the size of the field. Candidate who maybe hasn't gotten as much attention, but actually has the resources to meaningfully participate so far, is Joe Holberg, joeforchicago.com. And, as you've heard me talk about on the show before, candidates need to have an answer to the why question. Why are you running? Yes, but more like in the Simon Sinek sense of explain to me your motivation, because I'm not interested in what you're going to do or how you're going to do it until I'm persuaded by the why you're doing this. And as somebody coming in from the outside who was an entrepreneur and I guess spent some time as a teacher in CPS on the West Side, that why is going to need to be compelling to generate attention against what, sort of the myopia of establishment thinking when it comes to the press in this city and state. So here's Holberg in part giving his why on TTW.
I grew up in rural Michigan in a low-income household. We were on food stamps. I was a first-generation college student, and I actually ran out of money and almost had to drop out of school, and I was homeless, and I slept in my car. I came to Chicago for a job and an opportunity to make a life, and by serving and putting other people first, I was able to start a business, grow it, create jobs across the city, and serve tens of thousands of people. And eventually that company was acquired, which was a life-changing opportunity. And to me, the best thing I can do with the opportunities and the resources that I've worked really hard for is to continue to put other people first, serve them, and make sure they have opportunities to grow in their lives, just like I have in Chicago.
Joe Holberg is a candidate for mayor, city of Chicago. Again, the website for information on his candidacy and vision and all that jazz, joeforchicago.com, joeforchicago.com. Joe, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So develop that why for us a little bit more. I mean, I get the servant leader part of it. So how does that translate in a way that makes you unique in this field as it's currently constituted?
Well, as you were alluding to in sort of the opening, we have a lot of myopia in the political sense as it relates to mayor. And, we continue to see career politicians, right? There's value in their service and their longevity in politics, but we're also starting to see that the results of the political class have put us in a defensive position in Chicago, right? I think just yesterday or the day before, we ranked 49th out of the entire country for the amount of housing that we're building. I personally don't think that we should be near the bottom or last. I would like to see us, grow and win more. I would like to be able to see a balanced budget. That's one of my central priorities, having written 2 books on finance myself, in addition to running a financial technology company. We know these things are possible, but when the government is filled with people that are backed by special interests that is more concerned with maintaining the status quo than it is about serving the people of Chicago, I take issue with that, and so do the hundreds and the thousands of people that have contributed to our campaign, volunteered, participated in conversations. It's really clear that people are fed up with the status quo and are looking for a fresh perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody wants negativity, but we also don't want sort of the beautiful lies, sort of the cheap jingoism that we get all the time. At least that's my view on it. And I wonder if the cost of the Holberg plan, a mayoral candidate's vision for Chicago, to get a copy of it, costs $18.71. 1871. That reminds me of something. Is that sort of a implicit indicator of where you think Chicago is in like a post Great Fire rebuilding?
I think we are at a true crux, both in Chicago, but also nationally, in terms of some of these core questions that we're trying to answer. Coincidentally or not so coincidentally, we're also at the 250th anniversary of the nation, as we well know. And we're starting to see some of the fundamental assumptions of the relationship between government and its people be called into question. And instead of taking a view of, pandering to get votes, I think we need to start to think about the vision and the hope and the dream that we're all going to be working towards and chasing in Chicago. And I think we have some enormous opportunities at our doorstep, literally at a time when things like water and energy are coming back into the fray. We need to reimagine and re-envision what is possible, and we need to step out of sort of the day-to-day infighting that you see among factions, and we need to start to work on unifying ourselves so we can solve big problems together, even if it's not a perfect happy family style. Right? We can disagree, we can learn to collaborate, but we have to start approaching and solving much larger problems than the ones that we've sort of been focused on in the last couple of years. So yes, the choice of 1871, sort of the allusion to the Chicago plan, that's where my head's at, and that's where I want to take the city.
So when you talk about opportunities that are present right now, and to give us an example of one that is present but sort of unaccounted for. I mean, in other words, there's not enough focus on it to seize an opportunity that is presenting itself.
I think one of them that I would sort of call attention to, as both a former teacher and somebody who spent time, in financial technology, building solutions to help people advance their financial lives. One of the fundamental things as a society we have to get right is education, right? If you don't have an educated population, your entire society becomes at risk of not being able to sustain itself or to really capitalize on the opportunities. The thing that is very specific to me that I want the mayoral race and just the city to pay attention to in general is this idea of attendance. You cannot get achievement for students without attendance. And not only do we have a chronic absenteeism crisis unfolding before our very eyes, over 30% of CPS students are chronically absent. Over 57% of high school students are chronically absent. And over 40% of CPS staff themselves are chronically absent. If people are treating school as optional, we are not going to invest in and build the next generation of critical thinkers that can advance our city, our economy, and our society more generally. And I think that's something super concrete that I'm trying to work towards. Obviously, with an elected school board, that's going to be more of a partnership model, which I'm excited about collaborating with the board and CPS. But as a city, that is something super foundational that we have to pay attention to.
So do we just need a couple more Bud Billiken Day parades to punctuate, scattered throughout the year to punctuate the issue of absenteeism, or do we have to rethink how we do K through 12 education in Chicago? And that means rethinking the fifth floor relationship with the teachers union.
I think it's both. I mean, you've got these awareness things. You've got the tax holiday that started today, dropping the effective rate of taxes to make it easier and more affordable to purchase school supplies for hardworking families. You've got the Bud Billiken parade that you mentioned, tomorrow going on the South Side. And then you've got more structural issues. Like, we need to come up with a system that more transparently holds schools accountable to attendance, right? how are they going to learn math? How are they going to learn reading or social studies or science if they're not in school? And so at the system level, making sure that we are equipping CPS with tools and resources to focus on what the research says drives academic outcomes, which is attendance, and then thinking about holding a union accountable to the thing that they purport, which is they care about students, as they say. Well, if we care about students, then we need to be laser focused as a city, as a community, as stakeholders to driving attendance. It doesn't matter how many resources a school has if kids are not going there to learn.
You think Governor Pritzker is making a mistake by not opting into the national school choice program, the way that Governor Polis, Democrat in Colorado, is opting in to take advantage of whatever resources are out there that can provide more optionality for families?
I think at this moment, when we are so resource constrained, there is a great case to receive more federal funding. And these are uncomfortable trade-offs that we have to be willing to make in order to ensure that our city and our state has what it needs to deliver on its promise of education, and specifically making sure we have great school choice for students and families. And so in general, you're telling me that we could get tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into our state to bolster school choice. I think that's something that I can get behind and support.
What's your assessment of the job Brandon Johnson has done?
My assessment is, he's a well-intentioned individual, but I think it's pretty clear after 3.5 years that we're experiencing sort of a failure of leadership, right? You're seeing mass departures. He is unable to recruit and retain top talent in key positions. And unfortunately, the list is too numerous of vacancies and departures to sort of keep track of. Most notably, Annette Guzman just leaving along with not having a CFO. Going into budget season, I'm actually pretty concerned for the city that this budget process, this last budget that he's going to have, I think this is where the wheels are really going to come off. You're going to see a lot of sort of ideological warfare around increased taxes, increased spending at a time when we need to be focused on affordability. We need to be focused on building housing. We need to be focused on balancing the budget and making sure the city respects and honors taxpayer dollars and resources rather than gouging them by asking them to pay for more and more. And I think you see that in the polls. People are extremely disaffected and dissatisfied with him, and this is the exact right time to consider new leadership.
Just taking a step back, I mean, I mentioned it, but provide some depth for us. Your, as I understand reading about it, sort of financial literacy business that you, as you mentioned in your why answer on TTW, was something you built and was acquired, and so that was a good event for you. But financial literacy, that seems like the order of the day, starting with the city council.
I mean, how aligned could my background be? Right? Not only did I run a small business and create jobs which allowed people to pursue their own version of financial health and wellness, but the business itself was designed to help people better manage their resources, right? Not only do we not teach it in school where we should, but that leaves people moving into adulthood with a lot of financial confusion and financial stress. And then you see a lot of elected individuals, and I'm not, criticizing or naming any names, right? But how would you expect? How would you expect a city council or a mayor or anyone in government to manage an $18 billion budget if they themselves don't really understand the inner workings of the financial system, credit cards, debt, bonds, like all of these things at the personal level flow up to an important skill set and background and expertise when you're thinking about larger scale financial systems, the government, businesses, et cetera, we have a lack of financial education in the United States, and that was exactly what my business sought to address.
And I mean, you've put a substantial amount of money in the campaign, or lent it to the campaign. One of the things, obviously, is somebody coming from the outside in without a substantial public profile is, repetition and rapport is what's required to build brand, and that takes resources. I mean, do you have the personal capacity / desire to compete financially with some of those that are going to be more well-heeled because of their long-standing relationships with the institutional entities like the unions? I'm talking about Ali G. I'm talking about John Kelly. The resources to compete to get this message out, to provide something, from what I'm hearing, that presents a new way of thinking in the city.
I think the short answer is yes. And to put it into context, I've contributed to my own campaign. I feel very privileged and fortunate to be able to have done that. But 15 years ago, I was homeless on the verge of dropping out of college and on food stamps. And so there's something fundamentally important about giving people jobs and opportunities to work towards their goals and their success. And I think my story is what's connecting with people all over the city. I'll give you an example. We have a lot of people that run businesses. We have a lot of college-educated people that are donors to the campaign. But I was on the west side of Chicago yesterday, and somebody rolled down their window, right, and said, "Go Mayor," right? Just like straight up yelled at me. I have former students that have given me, $10 to the campaign, which means as much to me as any other level of contribution. And the reason is because we're competing in a new media landscape, as we've seen all across the country, where money can't buy happiness and money can't buy the mayor's seat, right? And so when we're on social media talking to real people about real issues they're facing around the housing crisis, lead water being poisoning people in their home, the ridiculousness of the overpriced bid that Mayor Johnson put for the parking meters, which I still think we can and should get back, right? That's not a decided issue. That's an asset that we need to own for the city in the long run, rather than turn it into a liability and a cost center. Like, these are the types of things that are allowing us to break through the noise. And as we've seen many times over history, and certainly recently, just because you have money at the start, just because your parents, seeded your political career, that isn't as important. It's still important, but it's not the only determining factor that is allowing candidates to break through the noise.
Speaking of getting things back, do you think you can get the Bears back? Should we try?
I think we should try. My focus, obviously, would be to keep the Bears in Chicago. But even more importantly, I'm sitting there and thinking about what Soldier Field could be or what it could become. And my vision is to put a roof, and we can make it retractable, right, so that the Bears can still have the home field advantage when it snows and it's cold. But I envision Soldier Field being something that's way more valuable and productive over time. And a roof would allow us to have Beyonce concerts in January or February. And so instead of fighting over, how much money the city or the McCaskey family is going to put into Soldier Field, we should start dreaming up how to use that space and turn it into an event venue and an entertainment magnet that draws in more events over the course of the year, so that we can have more tourism, we can have more people staying in hotels, dining out. And it's about growing and supercharging our economy through what we already have. That gets me really excited, just as much as it is exciting to think about getting the Bears back. I hope they don't leave before I become mayor, because first thing I'm going to do is walk in that door and say, let's make this work, rather than what Brandon Johnson, I think there was a quote, months ago. He said, "I tried my hardest and, I'm throwing in the towel." And it's like, what are you talking about, man? This is a city that's built on problem solving. This is a city that gets stuff done. We don't throw in the towel. We get it done.
All right. I got to ask you this. It's a little bit of a tangential question, but since you're a University of Michigan alum, right?
Correct. Yes.
All right. But it is sort of a cultural touchstone. So I think it's interesting. So University of Michigan announced that beginning this fall of 2027, the college will designate all literature, science, and arts first-year students their first semester grades as pass or no credit on their transcripts. Final grades will not be recorded on their external transcripts and will not be reflected in their GPAs. This is an effort to curb the mental health crisis in higher ed, so says Michigan, because Michigan grads, and it's not an easy school to get into, even though you have to be a pretty good student to get into Michigan. There's too anxiety-ridden to be able to deal with less than the grades they desire in their first semester. So we're going to hide them from them. What do you think about that?
I think this is an example of people trying to solve problems and experiment to find solutions that could work. Time will tell. The data will show itself later. But from an experimentation perspective, we know that students today are facing different issues than when I was in school, right? The prevalence of social media, creating mental health issues, I think the research is there, is not only coming out, but it's pretty clear. I was very unprepared to go to the University of Michigan. I came from a small rural high school. I was top of my class in middle of Michigan. But at the same time, I went to the University of Michigan, and the academic rigor was exceedingly high to my benefit. But I could see a version of reality where if I was just acclimating for that one first semester, I still have 7 other semesters where I can get grades. I could see myself benefiting, and I could see myself pretty annoyed that I couldn't actually measure that, A, B, C range. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm willing to experiment and try things, and I think that is a characteristic of leadership that's super important in an ever-evolving world. So why not try it?
Joe Holberg is candidate for mayor of the city of Chicago, as we've been discussing. His website, again, joeforchicago.com, joeforchicago.com. Joe Holberg, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.